Get out the insurance cards, get out the copays. The office is open, my friends. Brought to you by drroto.com.
What is up, and welcome in. We are the One and Done Show. We are your fast break of college basketball information. I am your host, Eric Romoff. You can catch me on those Twitter streets at FantasyNav. And he is the captain of our ship. He is MC Holland34 on Twitter. He is Mr. Mike Holland. Mike, coming to us live on Selection Sunday. How's it feel?
It feels good if my internet holds steady. I don't know what happened here, but
everyone's already filling out those brackets.
Yeah, I guess
bandwidth is at a premium.
Yeah, absolutely. No, this is we grinded all off season. We grinded during the year, bets, DFS. I mean, we're gonna bring it all this week, right? So this is just the start of it. A little preview taste. So yeah, I'm ready to rock and roll.
Man, this is the moment that we have all been waiting for, one shining moment, some might say. And like Mike said, we're going to be cranking out content left and right all week long for you guys. So make sure you are subscribed if you are not already. Make sure that you are following us on Twitter at GetGreenscreens. And make sure you are following the conductor of our train. That is Dr. William Cannon on Twitter, Mr. Jay Heinrich. Jay, you basking in the sunlight of this one shining moment?
One shining moment, fellas. There's a lot of times of the year where I like to say it's the most wonderful time of the year, but it's the most wonderful time of the year, dude. It's here. Selection Sunday. We've got a bracket, and we're going to break it down today. A little preview, like Mike said. First thoughts on the bracket. Not a ton of picks or anything like that today, but really breaking down some of these juicy matchups. And talking a little bit about some of the seeding. But yeah, man, excited to be here today, bringing it like always on a Sunday. Good stuff. Let's roll.
Yeah, I think that is a key thing to distinguish right off the top. We are not going to be filling out our entire bracket tonight. Right now, we are reacting to the mayhem that is Selection Sunday. Which teams got a softer path? Which teams got screwed, which teams are facing ridiculous matchups in the first round. Just kind of some initial thoughts, laying out some matchups that are catching our eye. And then later this week, we're going to break down that entire bracket and fill it out right along with you guys. So like I said, make sure you are subscribed here on YouTube. Make sure that notification bell is on so you don't miss any of the content we're pushing out. And with that, we will start with the tippy top, the top tier, the good shit, the number one overall seeds. We have got Alabama, Houston, Kansas, and Purdue taking that last one-line spot. Mike, I'm going to start with you. Of those 4 1 seeds, any notes, any takeaways from that lot?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing for me is Kansas. I thought, regardless of what happened yesterday with the Texas game, that they would be the number 1 overall seed with, 17 quad 1 wins. Yeah, so a little crazy, the fact that they won't be in a regional in their area. They're getting shipped out, and they're getting shipped out with some tough competition. So that was kind of the first thing that jumped out to me when I saw the bracket appear. Weird that they fall from 1 to 3 within a matter of days when their coach is out and one of their better players didn't play in the finale. So yeah, man, that's crazy to me. The selection committee, they got some things right, and they missed on a few things. This is on the top of my list of things that they missed. Jay, any thoughts around that and just the seeding overall, 1 through 4 with the number ones?
I haven't really hidden my disdain for Purdue and how they go about their business. We knew that it was a possibility that they'd get put on that one line, and sure enough, I mean, they did win the Big Ten. They did win the conference tournament. Penn State gave it a run too. By the way, that was an excellent game. And Penn State's somebody again that we've been talking about that nobody would be happy to see on the line next to theirs. But the Purdue on the one line just irks me, just bothers me a little bit. I mean that 8-9 matchup in the second round with Memphis and Florida Atlantic, could get a little spicy regardless. But yeah, I think that was the one thing that sort of stood out to me. I think UCLA would probably have been the team that I would have gone with there. But either way, honestly, it's probably more of a coin flip, and I just haven't been high on Purdue most of the time anyway. So Houston, too, Marcus Sasser not playing in the conference title game. He'll be probable or he is listed as probable for the first round, so he'll be fine. But, yeah, Purdue over UCLA on that one line, it was really what stood out to me at the top. At the tippy top.
So is that just a product of the conference that we play in, right? We've been kind of bemoaning how much love the Big Ten has gotten all season. Granted, they didn't get quite as many teams in as some were projecting as recently as a week or so ago. But do you think that Purdue in part edges out UCLA because they play in that beloved Big Ten, whereas UCLA is playing in, kind of a down Pac-12 this year?
Yeah, it's been interesting to see which conferences the committee sort of gave more weight to. Mike, what was your take when you sort of realized as this bracket was rolling through how the committee handled how they sort of ranked these conferences?
Yeah, weird, right? Because it's like, they win the Big Ten. I think they were rewarded for winning the conference tournament, so winning both, right? The double dip. I think that gave them the edge, and UCLA falling to Arizona. But really, they've lost Jalen Clark. They're down. Adam Bona didn't play in that game, and Tabellis went off. So, yeah, I mean, things just kind of hit right for Purdue, and they're kind of the darling, right? Like everyone, Zach Edey, National Player of the Year. Like it feels like a lot of momentum. I like that the committee only gave 8 teams to the Big Ten. I was been clamoring for that. Didn't want 10. Definitely didn't want 10. Didn't want 9. And yeah, we got down to 8. But it's kind of crazy to me that you can go through this Big 12 and it's crazy. You look at the quad 1 wins and I'm like, they went through this gauntlet, right? They got to the title game, which, the odds in the Big 12 to win the, the conference tournament were, kind of crazy for betting purposes. And they did it without their coach, without one of their better players. So it doesn't make any sense why Kansas is not the number 1 overall. Alabama being the number 1 overall. SEC, man, like getting 8 teams in. I don't know. We'll talk about Mississippi State here in a minute. I just when you run it down, right? Like I don't know. Alabama got the brakes beaten off of them by Oklahoma. Like and Oklahoma is like the 9th best team in the Big 12. So I know that's only one game, but I don't know. It just felt like the SEC got a lot of attention, and the Big Ten got a lot of attention, except for the very bottom of the league. So Big 12 seems like they were slighted. So. Yeah, just some key takeaways from the.
Yeah, I mean, it all starts with Kansas, right? Like you mentioned, it's not like they got bounced in the first round. They made it to the finals in arguably the toughest conference tournament in the entire nation, and much like Houston did, they came up short in that final, right? They also had extenuating circumstances that played into that, and Houston gets really the region that I think Kansas rightfully should have claim to, right? So now Houston has not only an easier path, but also, Kansas is now heading out west, and every single game on that west side of the bracket is going to be an absolute rock fight. So
yeah, exactly.
Selfishly, like it's going to be a ton of fun to watch, but I mean, Kansas has to have a bone to pick with how that all played out.
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
said it's going to be a rock fight, like rock chalk rock fight. Is that what it's going to change to? Okay, all right, we're good then. We're good.
So that is the top of the bracket. Let's scroll over to the opposite end of the spectrum. Our last 4 in. Not a whole lot of Big Ten here, right? None specifically. We've got Mississippi State, Pittsburgh, Arizona State squeaking on in, and Nevada rounding it out for the Mountain West. Jay, I want to start with you. Of these 4, do you think one of them maybe has kind of the strongest case, or maybe on the other side, you think one of them kind of snuck in when they shouldn't have?
I think Mississippi State definitely deserves to be in. Arizona State, I think how they finished pretty strong, wins against Arizona and USC to sort of close out their season there. Did you have the 5 quad 1 wins? Pac-12 is the 5th best conference in terms of Ken Palm rankings there too. Arizona State, I guess, for me, is probably the one out of those that I don't know, man. Like that. The Pac-12, I would have. I am sort of, maybe I'm a little biased, but Mike, you touched on it earlier with Oklahoma State. The six quad one wins, the gauntlet that Oklahoma State had to run. Oklahoma State didn't do themselves any favors down the stretch either, but I just felt like, and maybe that was what the committee was looking at. So how did they finish? A lot of times we'll hear like, how did the team finish out their season? Are they playing their best basketball right now? And Arizona State did have a couple of nice wins there, but and then again, Pittsburgh coming out of the ACC just sort of freaking held on for dear life there at the end, right? And sort of made it by the skin of their teeth. Mike, Mississippi State getting in, I do feel like that was super deserved. Nevada, was that a team that I don't think any of us really expected them to hop in there. What are your thoughts on Nevada?
Yeah, I mean, I was actually responding to someone on Twitter about, they were asking how Nevada got in. And I mean, it's pretty simple, right? Like 37th in the net. They have 4 quad one wins. They're actually 4-5 when we bring in some of these the first 4 out, right? We'll talk about, kind of their records in there. So, 4 quad one wins out of 9 opportunities. Pretty solid here. They have the 73rd ranked non-conference strength of schedule, which seems like it played a major role in a lot of these decisions and helped them from getting bounced, right? Because, I mean, they lost their last 3, which, Oklahoma State, that didn't do them any favors. I think the difference, it sounds like the committee is like wanted to look at the performance in quad one versus how many opportunities you had in the quad one. So Oklahoma State had 18 opportunities, right? And they only racked up 6 wins. So kind of worked against them, right? Being in the Big 12. It feels like if they weren't in the Big 12, right, they probably, would have only had 10 quad one opportunities and probably would have won 6 of them. So, that's kind of the thing that sticks out, right? Mississippi State with that hot run at the end, beating TCU in the SEC Big 12 Challenge, beating a red-hot A&M team down the stretch. Arkansas and Missouri are in the tournament. They beat them down the stretch, 9-4 to finish. So, I have a little bit of a problem with Pittsburgh. It feels like they were rewarded based on early season success and in a weaker conference. I'm okay with Nevada getting in being the 6th rated conference on KenPom, but, rewarding, Pitt for just kind of holding on, right? As a, KenPom ACC that was rated 7th. So I don't know. I've been banging the drum for 4 teams out of the Mountain West to get in, and 4 of them got in. If it was at the expense of Oklahoma State, I wasn't feeling that. I would rather have Nevada in and someone like Pitt or Arizona State who, look, they played a tough schedule down to the very end, right? And it feels like they got rewarded for that 3 that was hit from half court at Arizona. Arizona ends up winning the conference tournament, right? So it feels like they kind of got a boost there at the very end. So, just the committee was kind of all over the place, it felt like. So, Eric's going to bring in some of these first 4 out, and we can kind of, expand this here. I'm going to bring those in.
Yeah, one thing real quick on Arizona State, they were probably the biggest surprise for me, and a lot of it has to do with how we saw UCLA treated on the top end of the bracket, right? Like there was an argument kind of against the Pac-12 as to why they were the 5th team in the overall ranking, UCLA, but that argument is kind of flipped on its head with Arizona State making its way in without even making a finals appearance in the conference tournament, right? So it seems like there's some contradiction in the methodology. Mike, like you mentioned, we will move over to the teams that are hanging their head today. Those first 4 teams out: Oklahoma State, Rutgers, and North Carolina to go along with Clemson. Mike, I'll go right back to you. Among these 4, who do you think maybe has the biggest grievance to file with the selection committee?
I still say it's Oklahoma State, 43rd in the net, right? They got punished for playing a ton of quad ones and being 33% in those opportunities. So I don't know, man, but you look at it, it's like the committee should have also seen that they're down Avery Anderson, who's one of their 2 best players. Cisse missed some games there. Like he was the preseason Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year. Like it's not like, they didn't have some issues coming down the stretch here that they had to work through. And we basically said if they beat Oklahoma that they were probably going to be in. There weren't really any bid stealers. We were clamoring. This is one of the first years I can remember where there wasn't really a bid stealer. So you figured, like, if there were no bid stealers, how does Oklahoma State not get in? And so I look at Arizona State and I look at Pitt, and I'm just like, man, like the committee, I guess, is like mentioned, determined that, you know what, it's how you performed quad one wise. But the thing you look at Mississippi State, they got hot, right? So 4-8 in the quad one, but then they, kind of ran a little gauntlet there towards the end and put up some nice victories that helped them. But some of these other teams, like Nevada, wasn't playing well to end the year. Pitt wasn't playing well to end the year. I just don't know how Oklahoma State wasn't an 8th team to get in from the Big 12. So that was one that stuck out. But the other one here is Rutgers. Like, kind of crazy. We all thought they were just kind of in safely, I would assume, with the big win over Purdue. But the committee looked at their non-con strength of schedule at 342nd. They just didn't play anybody outside of the Big Ten. And so when you're quad ones, when you're 4-7, like, the committee said, no, we're not going to do it. So, yeah, how big was that game the other day then against Purdue again? Like, they needed that one. I don't think they thought that, Jay. What anything stick out to you? And in North Carolina, how the hell are they even this close?
Yeah, I definitely want to hit on that. I think what we're realizing, though, right now is that if you don't play anybody in your non-conference and you don't finish around the 500 mark in your quad one games, you don't make the tournament. And it seems to be the deal right now. And we talked a lot about running the gauntlet of the Big 12 and how many quad one games are these teams playing. And it turns out that none of that mattered.
Yeah.
just playing those games made no difference whatsoever to this committee. And the interesting thing to me will be moving forward to see in years to come how the committee handles this. Does it continue to be, a strength of schedule thing? Do we see teams start to adjust their non-conference because of that, and things like that? So,
yeah, I like that point, Jay, that kind of cut you off because, like, sorry, man, like, I got to mention this too because I think you hit it right on the head. If you're not 500 in quad one and you don't play a good strength of schedule, like, look at Clemson, 4-4 or 500 in the quad one, but 315th conference strength of schedule. Go ahead, man. Like, that's, you nailed it right on.
You've got to check both of those boxes, and if you don't, then and you're on that line, then the committee is going to go with an Arizona State, a Pittsburgh. I don't know, man. Like, and again, it's just when you're getting down to the end here, and we're talking like the cut line. There's just you're splitting hairs really on a ton of this stuff, and without being in that room, it's just really hard to tell, what's going through their minds. But that was sort of, man, just like you said, to put a bow on this. What is North Carolina even doing as the third team out, Eric? Like, this is a team that had no business even sniffing that cut line, and here they are, a couple of teams out. I think that's a little too high for them. But yeah, man, that was just the North Carolina thing was actually the thing that stood out to me the most out of the first four out, was that they were even there.
Yeah, I mean, they certainly haven't played well enough or don't have a resume that would constitute them being there. I think maybe it's just a little tip of the cap to a blue blood program, but realistically, I mean, they shouldn't even be near this conversation in what can only be categorized as a catastrophic season for the Tar Heels, coming in as the number one overall ranked team to now being allegedly in the first four out, practically speaking, probably much further than that. If you are checking in on YouTube, first hit those like and subscribe buttons. Don't be weird about this, right? Like, you're already here. And then get up in those comments. Let us know, of these bubble teams, our last four in, our first four out, who do you think maybe snuck their way in that doesn't deserve it? Who do you think got jobbed and should actually be dancing when they are not? Want to hear from you. We'll flash those comments up on the screen and keep the conversation going. We will keep our conversation going by getting into some of these specific regions. We will start with the Dirty South. Top four teams in this region: Alabama, Arizona, Baylor, and Virginia. Pretty stacked up top. Kind of gets a little bit wobbly elsewhere in the bracket. Mike, I'll start with you. What are your overall thoughts on how the South region is shaping up?
Stacked up top, if you mean number 1 and number 2, because I don't like 3 and 4, and they're going to be on upset alert for me from the jump. So.
Breaking news: Mike doesn't like Baylor.
Baylor and Virginia,
He's
man.
turned on his Baylor Bears.
I have, man. Like the thing that sticks out to me is Alabama's been rewarded for, taking care of business. But man, like this, it should be the Kansas Midwest region as the number 1 overall. Yeah, I mean, you have to like Alabama, right? Like they're just strong offensively, a great defensive team, super athletic. I mean, they just come at you at waves. It seems like he pushes every button correctly. Like they play 1,500 guys. They run the point nine from a fan every now and then. So yeah, it's just a well orchestrated team here. Arizona on that too. Man, like a matchup between those two. Like talk about a front court dream, right? Like Clowney and Bediako's athleticism against Zambalo and Tabellis. Like it's pretty salty. And yeah, what sticks out to me the most is outside of Virginia, Arizona and Baylor sometimes can be a little bit shaky defensively, Eric. You always bring up how, the two bigs for Arizona can kind of get pulled away from the basket. Baylor can't defend the backcourt to save their life.
No.
And 104th, I don't even know. I have to look this up, but when was the last time Baylor was outside the top 100 in defensive efficiency since Scott Drew's been there? So, yeah, for me, man, Alabama, man, they seems like one of the easiest paths to get there. So, Jay, what are your thoughts on these top 4 seeds in the South?
I was kind of hoping for Arizona to be out west, or will be in a couple of weeks, because that's a team that I'm really high on. And the fact that I do think that this is going to be a chalk region in terms of getting down to the end tier, definitely top heavy. And like you said, Mike, it's those top 2 seats for me. Baylor's defensive inefficiencies are in their ineffectiveness on the defensive side of the ball is astounding. You said it was something like 315th in terms of guards. The guard defense, it was awful. Some sort of just horrific number the other day when we were talking about how little defense they actually play in that backcourt. But where you give away there, on any given night, Baylor is when they're popping, they're popping. So, but Virginia does not impress me at all. Like you said, Mike, Virginia especially is on upset alerts early on. In this one, that Furman matchup is shooters. I don't know, man. It's going to be an interesting one to watch to see how Virginia handles that. But no, man. Yeah, Alabama with a clear path to at least their regional final here, and then Arizona for me will give them a run for their money, but. This is Alabama's regional probably to lose here, especially with how this laid out for them. Good for them, I guess, but it's when you're given the number 1 overall seed, right? Like this is how you're treated, and they're being treated like the number 1 overall seed.
Yeah, it feels like the way this region sets up, we're probably looking at a pretty chalky clash between 1 and 2 when it's all said and done. But the road to get there has some absolutely fascinating matchups, right? There's a money 5-12 matchup that they might have the best 6-11 matchup out of all of the regions in the tournament. So let's jump into some of these matchups that are catching our eye. Mike, I'm going to go back to you first. We'll sort of leave some of the top seeds to the side for now. Of these matchups in the South region, which are the ones that you think are the most interesting?
Yeah, the first one, the 6 hours, that 5-12 that you mentioned, San Diego State and Charleston. This is a weird matchup, right? Like this is 2 different styles coming together here. You got a San Diego State team that wants to play slow, top 10 defense, and you got a Charleston team that wants to fire off a ton of threes. And San Diego State is not going to let you get your shot off. I think it was it Seth Davis today that was this was one of the first upsets he called out, and I'm like, man, I don't know if Charleston's played anybody near the athleticism And the thing with San Diego State, like they just come in waves at you defensively, so they got a ton of depth, right? So, yeah, I like San Diego State in this matchup here, and I just don't know that Charleston can kind of get what they want offensively. So it's just a clash of styles, and San Diego State's really good at basically slowing the game down and making it a rock fight, as you like to say, Eric.
Yeah, and this seems like the time of year in general, right? Like the betting public tends to try to identify 12 seeds to pull the upset. Charleston is getting a lot of love out there in the national media, and I tend to agree with your breakdown, right? Like styles make fights, and I think that this matchup is just the absolute worst case scenario for Charleston. So I like San Diego to carry forward here as well. Jay, I'm going to go back to you. You mentioned that you haven't been too impressed with the Virginia Cavaliers. So tell us a little bit more and how they match up specifically in that 4-13 game against Furman.
Well, we know what Virginia does, and it ain't move fast, okay? So they're a defensive-oriented team, obviously. They're pretty efficient with the ball on the offensive side, but we know that they don't care how fast they go. It's a snail's pace. But one thing that these two teams do share, they do have in common, is these are two of the better passing teams in the country. Furman is 40th in turnover percentage and 22nd in assisted field goals. Virginia is 5th in turnover percentage and 3rd in assists to field goal ratio. So, a lot of movement, a lot of passing. Furman does get up and down a little bit more, better than average anyway. So you like to see that in terms of a Virginia game, but they're just going to clog it up like they always do. But here's the deal with Furman. There are legitimate stars on this team, people that, players that are considered top 100 players in the country, and they're at Furman, right? Like we don't talk about this. Is not a team that we've discussed a ton here, but when you have Bothwell and Slauson there, this is a very interesting matchup, and another one where, when we're looking at those 13s, Eric, like you were mentioning, the betting public, we all like to look at our brackets and identify those 5-12s. I think the 4-13 line is the new 5-12 line, where we're talking about where we're looking for those big upsets. This game for me is Virginia's a good basketball team, but honestly, with the star power that Furman brings, this is a coin flip for me right now with how this is going to go. And Mike, I know Virginia is there.
Yeah,
I can't do it, man.
Like you said, you
right?
always say this, Jay, is that they're a team that every year could be a number one, and they're the one team that could lose to a 16, or they're a team that can win the national championship. Like the floor ceiling combination, as we like to say in DFS, it rings true to their potential, during the year. The thing that Virginia can hang on to, right, is well coached, obviously. Yeah. They're 4th in Division I experience, so these guys aren't going to be afraid of all this talk that's going to be happening. Furman might be one of the more popular picks here, and Furman, this is first year in the tournament in a very, very long time, and Bothwell and Slauson, we don't know how they're going to play on the biggest stage. They're going to hear their names talked about a ton here over the next couple of days. This is their 5th year in college, and this is their first one shining moment opportunity. So. Is Virginia just going to hunker down and do what they do and just take them out of their game? Yeah, this is going to be a fascinating one to watch. But when it first dropped, I was like, that's not good for Virginia. Jalen Slauson and his versatility is crazy. And the fact that Bothwell, can go out there and get you 20, like, man, and they got some other pieces too that are nice. So, I think we got Kevin D over in the comments, man, dropping some fire.
Dropping the bomb. Memphis over Purdue. Everyone note the time, 29 minutes, 24 seconds in. Kevin D planted his flag and said that Purdue dropped.
Don't mind it.
I don't mind it either,
Kendrick,
man. I don't mind it either. Yeah, we're seeing that Kendrick Davis that we were overpaying for earlier in the season. We're starting on DFS purposes. We're really starting. I mean, that conference final, Kendrick Davis is
Yeah.
a star,
Yeah,
and Penny Hardaway is making it happen. We talked about him earlier in the season too, about like finding a way to turn that corner. And
Yep.
even though they're an 8 seed, that's going to be a popular pick. So thanks for checking in the comments, definitely. But we appreciate that, man. Thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, definitely appreciate it, Kevin. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. We're going to be going through each of the games in our bracket, and we will spend a good amount of time on that Memphis and Purdue matchup. Mike, before we move out of that dirty South, there's a game that features two dirty teams, and not in terms of the way they play, but two teams that I think if they get hot, they can each be some of the scariest teams in this entire region, right? If this doesn't go 1-2 in the regional final, I wouldn't be surprised if either of these two teams make their way in. That's that 6-11 matchup that I mentioned. We've got Creighton, we've got NC State, two of our favorites from the year, two really streaky teams overall. Mike, what are your thoughts about this 6-11 tilt?
My gosh, guys, like when I saw this, like my head almost exploded in real time. Like, I cannot believe this. You would think this would be maybe a second or a third round matchup, but here we are. You talked about the streaks, like Creighton to start the year hot, and then Kalkbrenner injury, and then fizzled out, and then caught fire again. Looks like they were going to win the Big East, and then collapsed towards the end. NC State, like, comfortably got in, but there's people talking about they may not even get in. So, dynamic backcourt. Anytime you can run those two out there, Terquavian Smith, Jarkel Joyner, and Casey Morsell, he can shoot. So he kind of gets left off. But man, like, talk about star power, like all over the floor. We're gonna talk about it too, like clash of styles, man. These NC State guards, like, super strong, but hey, Creighton's got some pretty good guards too. I know Jay's got your guy Nimhard over there, Alexander. But man, the biggest thing for me, Jay, is how are they going to stop on both ends of the floor? Ryan Kalkbrenner should probably be able to do. Yeah, you're gonna do whatever he wants. I mean, Dewana might have been playing a little bit better, but they need DJ Burns' offense. So I don't know, man. Like, what's your take on on these two?
Well, I think you were mentioning the guard play for Creighton a little bit ago, and that's going to be the difference for me is can they contain those NC State guards, but also are they going to be able to distribute like they have all season long? Creighton is 31st in assists to field goals made ratio, and North Carolina State is 325th in the same stat. If Creighton's guards can control the ball, can distribute the ball like they have for most of the season, and control NC State's guard, this is going to be a Creighton Blue Jay type of a night. And I didn't even talk about Baylor Shireman, but there's a lot of star power that's so much easier said than done. Terquavion Smith and Jarkel Joyner have really shined towards the end of the season here, and we're starting. Those are guys that we've talked about all year long. But yeah, this really is going to come down to if Creighton can play the type of game that Creighton wants to play, or can NC State throw them off and sort of, again, the NC State gets up and down a little bit more, 89th in tempo. Creighton's not, super slow, 149th. But, Creighton's really good defensively. And again, if they can play good defense and, keep distributing that ball like they have all season long, Creighton should come out of this, but it's just star power.
Yeah, it's ISO ball versus team ball, man. Like, this is what it's going to come down to. Like, can Joyner and can Terquavian Smith do enough isolation? If they're able to open up the floor and create for others, which Terquavian was doing that a ton to begin the year.
Early this season,
and it just kind of got away from him. He falls in love with the NBA 3 and all this other stuff. So this is going to be fantastic. Like, what day? This is this is Friday at 3. Oh, man, like, I know what I'm doing Friday at 3. Like, nobody bother me.
Yeah, don't talk to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're kicking the weekend off with a bang. Teddy O'Hamp checking in on in the comments, and he's projecting a little bit of foul trouble for DJ Burns. I tend to agree, right? Like, Burns is super smooth with his footwork on the offensive side, but he can be exposed defensively. So I think that, top to bottom, Creighton is probably the more complete team, right? But like I said at the top, either of these teams get hot, and they're absolutely the type of team that can rattle off a ton of wins and make a deep, deep run. Ryan also checking in, NC State does not deserve to be here, so you got to back them. Right?
Yes. I love it.
This is one of those interesting seeding matchups that's a bit of a head scratcher. Kind of reminds me of the 6-11 matchup with Texas last year, where maybe the numbers could have even been inverted, but it's going to end up being a fantastic game overall. And speaking of Texas, don't look now. I think Mike might have a plant in the chat. Our guy Teddy Boy taking Texas to win it all. He's alleging to be a Duke fan. I'm wondering what the actual price tag was that Mike paid him to say both of these things. And Kevin's not too sure, right? So they're going back and forth. Teddy's making some solid points. Close out with the big win against Kansas in the regular season. Obviously took care of Kansas here in the conference tournament. So love the chatter, love the conversation still going here in the chat. Keep those coming. We will flash up on the screen. And if you're not already, please do like this video and subscribe to the channel. These are the conversations that we're having all week long. We will move on to the Beast Regional. This one is looking kind of interesting. It starts with our top 4 seeds: Purdue, my team, Marquette, K-State, and Tennessee. So pretty interesting composition up top with these top 4 teams. Mike, I know that you're a little bit bearish on Purdue. I know that you refuse to give Shaka Smart or Rick Barnes any love. So how do you feel about these top 4 teams? Is K-State your favorite out of this region?
Yeah. I'm not high on Purdue. Like, it just is what it is, right? I made my bed. I'm not delaying it when they win the national title. Marquette, like, look, no one's saying that Shaka Smart doesn't know how to get things done. The question is whether he can get it done in March, because that has not been the case since he made the legendary run there to the Final Four and got the Texas job. And yeah, there's a monkey on his back. Like, it's there. Like, he's going to feel that pressure. They got these guys up to a 2 seed. We talk about it all the time previously. Not a lot of star power with Marquette. But, man, the flip here, Shaka's, they're still playing good defense, right? Top 50 defensive efficiency. But it's the offensive efficiency. And there was tons of times, Jay, where, like, here going to these games, watching Texas, there'd be 6-7 minute droughts. And you're like, you have NBA athletes that you've recruited. And it just didn't really seem to fit Shaka's style, right? Like, it was all about the havoc defense that he was creating. I think we're seeing an evolution with Shaka Smart. And we didn't know if it was – I don't think it would have happened if he was still here. I think going to a school where there's not as much pressure, look what he's able to accomplish, right? And he's back home, right? He's probably more comfortable than the heat that's given to these Texas coaches all the time. So I don't know, man. It feels like he's kind of changing the guard here and trying to be more of an offensive-minded, savant and trying to play that way while still playing solid defense. So your take on Marquette and some of these other teams?
Do you think Marquette was rewarded the same way Purdue was for winning for the double?
Yeah, I think the double-double was huge. And I think it should be, right? Like, I mean, now thinking about it, it's like, man, you do both, right? In a Power 6 conference, like,
yeah.
I mean, that pretty impressive feat. Not that I'm that high on Purdue, but it's like that's a whole different conversation, right?
It's not nothing, yeah.
Yeah, it's not nothing, exactly. So, I'm right there with you. Tennessee, Jay, too, like.
No. Paint dry, like, see Virginia. Like, that's the gimmick for me there. Rick Barnes will try to win. Will try to score 52 and win in the first round against Louisiana. But now, man, this is the region that I'm the least excited to talk about, to watch. There are some good matchups in this region. Why don't we just go ahead and move on to that? Because the top 4 here don't excite me at all.
Number 5 might excite you.
Oh,
isn't that kind of weird? Isn't that weird? Duke gets an awesome draw.
Yeah.
Crazy
Duke
how this works.
against the old Oral Roberts team that we were really hoping would make it in because of that star power with Max Asmus. We saw them obviously a couple of years ago making that run to the Sweet 16, and now facing those Dukies. This is obviously, like I said, that team a couple of years ago, Asmus. scoring 30 points a game, leading up to all of that. But again, Mike, this is one of those clash of styles, right? Like, and we're seeing a lot of those types of matchups that we've talked about. Oral Roberts, 7th in effective field goal percentage, 1st in turnover percentage, 10th in free throw shooting, 35th in threes at, shooting at a 37% clip. Duke, 21st in effective field goal percentage, 42nd in shot blocking, 21st in opponent three-point percentage. This is just an offense versus defense type of a thing. Duke has been playing their best basketball at the right time. Again, I feel like when Duke is a 5 seed, has a better, you feel more confident in picking them to come out of their region than you do Kansas as a 1 seed. Maybe that's a little bit of an issue, but yeah, man, this is one that I'm going to be tuned into. I'm glad Asmus is back. Yeah, me too, Ryan. I'm not going to even lie to you, my man. I'm not even going to lie to you. I hope you're right.
It just sets up so perfectly.
I hope you're right, my guy.
Yeah, but hold on. This is not a good matchup for these guys,
it's
man.
Not.
This is like if you can pick one team that's like, okay, like we want these mid majors that we've been clamoring for to get in. It's like you see the draw. We'll talk about another team that we were super high on, and you see the draw, and you're like what's going on? We want at least one upset. This is not the team for Oral Roberts. Like, this is annoying. Like, Duke turning it on lately. Eric, what's that stat? Like, when they have their starters intact, they're probably like 17-1 now or 18-1. They
were 15-1 before the tournament.
So their projected starters, right? So 18-1.
Yeah, with their projected starters, they're 18-1 now. And in that tournament, I mean, we've talked about it all season long, right? Like as Duke's been heating up, what do they need to do to really make a run? And it's drain it from 3. You look at that Miami game; they shot 50% from behind the arc. Look at the game before that; they shot 42%. Right? Like,
yeah,
they can find that stroke from range, and it's going to be an absolute problem. Tedio checking in, saying that down year for the ACC.
It is.
Don't put a whole lot of stock winning this tournament. I think that's fair, right? This might not be the most difficult year to win that ACC tournament, but this Duke team is legit, and if they plug that one hole,
definitely.
I mean, they can make a deep run in this region, right?
That was the thing when we talked about it during the offseason. Where's the shooting, right? Like, Trevor Keels is gone, AJ Griffin is gone, Paulo Banchero is gone. It's a great 3-point shooters. And then who are you bringing back? You're bringing back Jeremy Roach, who is not a great 3-point shooter. And then who are you bringing in? I mean, you're bringing in your best 3-point shooter is a 7-foot stretch forward, right? Like, and Filipowski, Whitehead's not an outside shooter. Tyrese Proctor, should still be in high school right now. It doesn't have much of an outside shot. Mark Mitchell is a junkyard dog going to clean up the glass. If they shoot 36 to 38% even, they're going to be in every single game. And defensively, we've been waiting because I was waiting to see it. When you recruit 3 of the top 4 players in high school, right? Like, and 2 of them happen to be 7-footers that kind of complement each other in Lively and Filipowski. I mean, Lively, he couldn't stay on the floor, and he was injured, right? Couldn't stay on the floor, injured. Whitehead, a slashing wing isn't a 3-point shooter, but man, athleticism with these guys, right? And the thing is like they complement each other so well, and we're seeing it. Like, when Derek Lively plays 25+ minutes, this team goes to another level defensively. And when they're able to play, high-low and Filipowski can stretch the floor a little bit, and you get any kind of outside shooting from Grandison, a bonus 3 or 2 from Roach, like, man, I get it, right? Like, it's a down ACC, but man, like, you just look at it from a roster perspective of what needed to happen. If they had been healthy and had a little bit better outside shooting to start the year, we would be talking about a very, very strong. And if UNC had performed this year, this would be a super strong ACC. But since Duke and UNC are, one's not in the tournament, the other one's a 5, it feels like the ACC is very down. Which, yeah, it was a down year. But find me 10 rosters better than Duke, I guess is my thing. I don't know, Jay. Am I off on this?
No, you're not. But we also haven't even brought up Connor Vanover yet, though. Like, that's something else to consider here for Oral Roberts. The 6'5" forward, 12.9 points per game, 7.2 boards, 3.3 blocks. The transfer obviously came in from Arkansas. Can Vanover affect the game enough Eric, for you to swing this Oral Roberts way, or is this just like Mike was saying? This is just a really bad. This is sort of like, I don't know,
Yeah, I
man.
mean, it hurts me to say it, but I think this is a wrap for Oral Roberts, right? Like we love Max Asmus. We want to see him make a bit of a run here, but I mean this Duke team playing the way that it has been all season is a horrendous matchup for Oral Roberts. And if things are really getting going, if they're draining a few from three, I mean this team is so versatile they can switch to defend on really any game plan or combination of players Oral Roberts puts out there. I think we probably see a one and done for Oral Roberts, unfortunately. We got a ton of comments to catch up on here. So, like we talked about earlier, Ryan is hoping that Smith buries them. I mean, he could very well explode, and he's the type of player that can take over a game, but everything is going to have to go right. And just because I am the lone Marquette fan here, got to go back to Teddy. Marquette is a very dangerous team. Ryan agrees. Remember what they did when Baylor came to town. Look, like I'll continue to give Shaka his flowers, right? This is a new evolution of this man. They've been offensive juggernauts all season. This defense is really starting to click. OMP can lock down just about any player, right? So I'm really excited to see what Marquette does. And I'm also excited to see how this 6-11 matchup shakes out. We've got another absolute haymaker, Kentucky and Providence. Mike, you want to kick us off here? Tell us what you're liking about this 6-11.
Yeah, I like a lot of this. Like, man, talk about two teams that 6-11. I don't think we saw that coming even as of 2-3 weeks ago, right? Providence kind of falling off a cliff here. Kentucky just, I don't know what they are at this point. Like, it just kind of is what it is with them, right? Jekyll and Hyde, I guess. But some of the issues with Kentucky, Severe Wheeler, just don't know what the deal is, right? He's like really the only true point guard. I know Kason Wallace, he's a combo guard, man. He's done a great job, but dealt with some injuries here. So, these two teams are coming in cold, man. Like Providence coming in, they've lost 3 straight. Kentucky's lost 2 of the last 3, and those 2 games were trying to will Vanderbilt into I don't know if they had some kind of like deal with Vanderbilt to try to get them into the tournament too, but almost got there, man.
You almost made it happen.
Yeah, but it's going to come down to Sheboy against Big O. Sheboy is Big O against big old Ed Crosswell there. Big Ed. So it's going to be a fun matchup. Can Crosswell? Look, we've seen where Sheboy's gone off, right, Jay? Like, and dominated games, and nothing else has really happened. I think the X factor is Reeves, and how he plays for Kentucky is kind of how they're going to go. Like, he's got to make shots for them. They're just kind of all over the place offensively. And then there's the Bryce Hopkins narrative too to kind of watch out for. Didn't get a lot of run for Kentucky last year. Transferred to Providence, and then absolutely broke out. So. I don't really know who I like yet to pick in this game. Probably have to do a little more research on this, but it's going to be a fun one inside for sure.
Yeah, I think the Bryce Hopkins revenge factor will, that does play a part here. Transferred from Kentucky, obviously last year. He is their number 1 guy, 16 points and 8.5 boards a game. But if Sheboy is Sheboy, then this isn't really a deal here. But we've seen it go the opposite way for Kentucky. It's not like they've been world beaters. They have been playing good. They were playing well, and Eric and I were really riding them hard in terms of getting them into this tournament even a few weeks ago, and they have lived up to that. But like you said, really not finishing the season on a super high note. Something that you would like to see, but again, the question marks in the Kentucky backcourt, I think, are going to play a big part of this. Providence's backcourt is a little bit more stable with Bynum and Carter. Severe Wheeler, but injured, doesn't really fit into what they do, and they've been relying heavily on Wallace and Reeves, like you were saying, Mike. So, are those the guards that you want to put your eggs into their basket? I don't know. We'll see, but I do think Kentucky should just by looking at their roster on paper, like this should be Kentucky's game. But Crosswell can really go off and handle his business at times too. And like you said, the Bryce Hopkins sort of revenge factor is something to look at too.
Man, y'all know I love a nice walk down narrative street. So I'll be looking
Hell
for Bryce
yeah.
Hopkins to have a game. And I mean, I was studying the tape. I went back and watched our bracket shows from last year. A lot of the things that we're saying about Kentucky this year, the things we're saying about them last year against St. Peter's, right? So Providence is a little bit more of a well-established program than those Peacocks, but ultimately, I worry about Kentucky's ability to find a solid ball distributor in their backcourt, right? They got shooters, they got guys that can ISO. They don't have a whole lot of people that can set up the entire team. So definitely a storyline to watch. The other game that we're watching here is the 7-10 matchup. Couple of proud programs, couple of interesting backcourts facing off here. Jay, I'm going to go over to you first. Looking at number 7 Michigan State, number 10 USC. What are some of the things that jump off the page about this matchup for you?
It's a backcourt. This is a backcourt to backcourt matchup. You guys know how much I like to talk about backcourt play this time of year. Michigan State with Walker and Hogard, and then USC obviously with Boogie Ellis and Kobe Johnson. That is going to be the key for this one for me. Which one of those backcourts is going to shine? Obviously, both of these teams. This is one of those matchups where if you would have told me Michigan State was a 10 and USC was a 7, I don't know that I would have really blinked, to be honest. So I think that this is that close of a matchup, and I do think it's going to come down to the backcourt play. Mike, what about the front court? USC, their front court, any question marks there? And obviously, we know who Michigan State's coach is, so how is he going to coach these guys? It's January, February, Izzo.
Yeah,
right.
I think they have the advantage there. What is he, like 52 and 21 in the tournament? So
Yeah.
kind of ridiculous. Look, we feel like the guards are kind of do their thing in this game, but the front courts are kind of interesting. Like question marks with Owuchukwu. I think I got that one right this time. Industry status, kind of up in the air, right? Josh Morgan forced to play big minutes, right? Trey White's been kind of nice this year. I just feel more comfortable with Michigan State and what they have on the front court. They have Sissoko who can, block some shots, dive to the rim. Hauser, like in his 15th year, can stretch the floor, and he's a good rebounder, even though he's terrible on the defensive side. I don't know that they really need him on defense in this game, so it kind of sets up Michigan State here, in my opinion. And then that kind of an X factor for me is Malik Hall. Can give them a nice boost. So, it's hard not to trust Izzo. A first game of a tournament, right? It just feels like the guy knows what he's doing, and he's been doing it for a long time.
Yeah, he certainly does, right? This is his month, his time to shine. So definitely think will be a fun matchup to watch there on Friday morning. Before we move on to our next region, a couple of things to clean up in the chat. Teddy O jumping in, saying that he thinks realistically it is going to be Kansas or Bama cutting down the nets. Those are definitely two of the betting favorites, but Teddy doesn't quite agree with that. Worried about the SEC, think they're a little bit overrated, pointing to Texas's recent performances, against Kansas as to a chink in their armor. So definitely feels like this one is wide open. Definitely keep those comments coming. We appreciate them. We love the conversation that's going on in the chats. If you have any questions you want to throw in there, we'll definitely flash them up on the screen and get them answered. If you want to pull a Kevin D and plant your flag on a 1 seed getting upset in the first round, you can go ahead and do that too. We will timestamp it. We will hold on to that receipt so you can victory lap with it. Definitely keep those comments coming. And hey, hit that subscribe button if you're already here on YouTube. We will move over to the Midwest region. Top 4 seeds include Houston, Texas, Xavier, and Indiana. This one feels like it's pretty tough up top. And, beyond that, I feel like these 4 teams have a relatively clear path in terms of how they advance to this side of the bracket. Mike, going to kick off with you looking at those top 4 tiers. Any burnt orange teams that you might want to talk about?
Yeah, one that's pretty good. Like this draw for my squad. We'll start at the top, though. I mean, it's Houston, right? They've just been a powerhouse for the last few years. Kevin Sampson, like, man, what a job building that program up. 4th in defensive efficiency. Man, just a great job. But I look at the 3-4 here, like Xavier, no Fremantle. Feels like they've gotten a little bit better on defense with Jerome Hunter taking those minutes. But I mean, honestly, like, you can't tell me that losing Zach Fremantle is a is a good thing. So, yeah, I can't see it, right? With Xavier, I don't know. So I just feel like Fremantle is just such a huge loss for them. Indiana is scary. I know Jay loves himself some Indiana here. I went on radio today and said that it was some talk about Penn State going one way and Indiana going the other way. Jay, are you with me, man? I don't really feel like that's a thing. I mean, you have basically the national player of the year runner-up and TJD. Yeah, I'm not worried about Indiana at all.
I'm not either. And basically, if you have a hyphen in your name and you play for Indiana, I'm in on you. Okay, so Trace Jackson Davis, Jalen Hood, Shafino. Like, I mean, let's go the all hyphen team. Yeah, for sure. But no, I'm not as worried about Indiana as some are at all. To be honest, this is a good team with star power. Indiana really doesn't worry me too much. But this 8-9 matchup, though, guys, is definitely it's one of those on that line that is sort of catching my eye a little bit. Another one of those clashes, right? Like which one of the strong styles is going to prevail in the end here. So that's an interesting one for me. Mike, you feeling one way or the other about that 8-9 matchup here in this region?
Yeah, I love it. On radio today, I mentioned about Iowa, and no one seed's going to want to see them, especially with Chris Murray. I think the thing for me is that, man, like, the matchup is just so weird. Iowa doesn't play great defense. Auburn plays really good defense. Iowa's super efficient offensively. Auburn at times can kind of be like, what the hell are you doing? But for me, man, like, just breaking this thing down and looking at it closely today, this is a clash of like outside shooting from both sides, right? Like, so Iowa's 164th in 3-point percentage, shooting 34%. We know they can have some guys that can catch fire. Auburn's 5th in opponent 3-point percentage, so holding teams under 30% from 3. So kind of an interesting take there. Auburn 314th in 3-point percentage. They only shoot it at 31%, but Iowa gives up 37% from 3. So it's like, which one of these is going to kind of come into play here? Outside of that, but it just may come down to what star shines most, right? You got Chris Murray on Iowa, Janai Broome, Rabaracha Jay could be an X factor, man. It's a tough Auburn front court, though. You have any takeaways from this game? This feels like one of the these 8-9s are fire, man. Like,
yeah, all of them. Like, this is absolutely, and none of these 1 seeds are really can really be super excited about looking at this and being like, oh, like, even I mean, like, if you're looking at it, maybe the Alabama 8-9 matchup, they're not too concerned, but down here you come down to the East and it's Memphis, Florida Atlantic. No, don't want to look at that. Iowa, Auburn, absolutely not. And then you've got Arkansas and Illinois, and we've already talked about how Kansas sort of got the shaft with how that all laid out. So, no, yeah, you're absolutely right, man. These 8-9 matchups are fantastic. Are going to be all fantastic to watch. It's, for me, this is the Chris Murray show, to be honest. And until I see otherwise, I'm definitely going to stick around and probably pick Iowa in that one.
Yeah, definitely have to put a premium on star power when it gets to tournament time. Teddy Yo checking in and giving Bruce Pearl his flowers. Apart from maybe stare down ability, likes Bruce Pearl as the better coach in this matchup specifically. And I mean,
he doesn't have a better
absolutely.
stare. He doesn't have a better stare than Fran.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's the only category that Fran's got on Bruce in my book. I tend to agree with Teddy O that the coaching nod goes towards the Auburn Tigers. We'll move on to our second game to call out here, a second interesting matchup. Jay, I'm going to come to you here first because you mentioned the hyphen principle with the Indiana side, and Teddy tends to agree. He feels like he can't really figure Indiana out, right? They win at Purdue, and they turn around, and they get blown out by Chris Murray and those Iowa Hawkeyes. So, Jay, let's double click here on this 4-13 matchup, Indiana and Kent State. Say a little bit more about either the case that you're making for Indiana or why it might actually be a bit of a closer call.
Well, I think that Kent State's going to struggle with their size, right? Like Indiana is just going to outsize them for the most part. They're going to have to force turnovers here. Like they are 20th in opponent turnover percentage. Kent State is. So if they can follow the game, their script that they like to play, then they can maybe, sneak one in. Kent State did beat Toledo in that conference title game, which, we were obviously wanting to see Coach Kowalczyk make it and those Toledo Rockets make it to the big dance. But nonetheless, Kent State punched their ticket. And, it's going to be a tough matchup, I think, Mike, for Kent State, just matching up with TJD in general. Like, that's just people that aren't 345th in average height as a team have trouble marking TJD here, man. So I feel like this is a smash opportunity for him here. And I think that's sort of why I'm really liking Indiana here. But, again, Kent State – they're a good defensive team. They do force a lot of turnovers, but they're going to have to really work hard to play the type of game that they want to play and not let Indiana dictate the game flow.
Yeah, I mean, this is the size. There's a size issue here, especially with Race Thompson too. like the size matters, right, guys? I mean, you got Race Thompson in there, like. This is man, like a lot of people picking Kent State. I guess, right? Like Sincere Carey, like an awesome offensive player. Malik Jacobs, man, like he's so much fun to watch on both sides. Averaged almost 3 steals, 13 points, 5 rebounds, almost 4 assists. Yeah, they got a nice little 1-2 punch, but man, we can't forget about our guy Jalen Hood-Schifino, who we were banging the drum on for most of the year. This guy's no slouch. They have shooters. Sometimes they don't shoot. One of our deals here, right, with our crew is shooters shoot. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. Stylistically, I don't love it because the thing is like TJD is such a great passer. So Kent State, they're going to start, 6'8" and 6'9" guy here, and really the 6'9" guy doesn't play a lot. So really they move over to a 6'7" at the 4-5. And you're going to tell me that TJD is not going to be able to look over, see – they're going to get open shots. Like the shot quality for Indiana should be really good. But Kent State plays some pressure defense, like you stated, Jay. So they're going to have to muck this game up. They're going to try to figure out how to get TJD maybe into some foul trouble or in some situations that he's uncomfortable with. But he's just grinded through the entire year, and it doesn't feel like anybody could stop him, right? So – I don't know. I don't like this one for Kent State's purposes. I actually thought Toledo, who was second in 3-point shooting, could really spread the floor. Like it felt like they were maybe if they were the team in this matchup, more dangerous.
Definitely.
So I don't know, man. Like I just have a hard time saying like, oh, Kent State's going to come in here shut TJD down. He's not going to be able to find the open man. Like.
Yeah, we talked about that when they played Purdue recently, how they tried to clog it up with him, and he's just picking out passes around the perimeter. And if they're hitting their shots, it's over with.
Yeah,
Indiana can win multiple ways.
Yeah, I mean Indiana and specifically TJD, he's got that soft passing touch, right? So if they're trying to shut him down, if they double him, maybe triple him, he'll happily kick it out. Ryan is kind of taking the other side here. He's talking about how Kent State almost beat the Zags. He's saying that if Peyton is healthy, that he likes that side +4. He's also agreeing with Teddy O that he'll take the Auburn side of the coaching matchup in that Auburn and Iowa tilt. Our last interesting matchup here that we're going to talk about in this region is the 7-10 matchup. The fighting Texas A&M Aggies, number 10, Penn State Nittany Lions. Mike, I'll start with you. There is a palpable buzz with these Aggies. We've also got them facing off against one of our favorites, Jalen Pickett. So what are some of the things that we need to know about this matchup?
What the hell happened here with seating? I guess the committee said Texas A&M didn't play anybody non-con, right? And so here you go. We're going to go ahead and put Big Brother right next to you. And if you so happen to beat one of the hottest teams who just played their way into the tournament in Penn State, you were going to have to face off against Texas. So, I don't know. I guess that's their punishment. Yeah, really underseeded, man. I thought A&M deserved especially the way they played in the SEC. They're deserving of a 4 or 5, but man, yeah, the committee.
Two of the hottest teams in the country right now.
Yeah,
right?
Man, kind of crazy. Both losing in the final today, but man, we've seen these teams do some major damage here towards the end of the year. It's going to come down to outside shooting, right, guys? We know Penn State, they're just going to play basically a 5-man out, 4 guards a ton of the time. And yeah, Jalen Pickett, just an awesome player, old school player too. He just backs people down the post as a point guard and then kicks out for threes. They got shooters with funk. Cameron Winter's been playing awesome lately. A&M, their guards sometimes a little more streaky from the outside. I love Tyrese Radford, what he can do. If A&M decides they want to punish Penn State, they can. I mean, Penn State is terrible on the glass because they play that style. I don't think A&M's going to – I think they'll probably just try to match up with them because A&M has a bunch of guards that they can play. But it would be interesting to see if A&M would toss it down into Marble, try to pound away with Henry Coleman, and Penn State's not going to change, but to punish them for playing that style, Jay. I mean, that seems like an old school philosophy. It seems like that doesn't happen as much anymore where a lot of teams want to play open floor type games, so A&M kind of get sucked into that. But I don't understand why you wouldn't just dump it down and just do work on these guys on the inside. We've seen so many big men. We saw Edie on the slate in DFS. We were like, he's gonna have 4,000 rebounds and 500 points. So I don't know, man.
Yeah, but we mentioned how hot these teams have been, and Penn State. February 11th was 5-9 in the conference, and then they proceeded to run off 8 out of 9, and that one loss was in the conference title game to Purdue. I really like how they're playing right now. These are the sort of teams where you look at sometimes you can't just pay attention to the seed. Sometimes you got to pay attention to things like who's playing the best right now, who is on the run of the season, who is peaking at the right time. I think both of these teams are playing all right. A&M definitely got punished for their non-conference schedule. But again, this is one where I'm not quite sure the direction that I'm going to go yet. But I do know that Penn State is freaking on fire right now. They shoot the ball so well from 3, 9th in the country from 3-point in terms of percentage. A&M 246th in 3-point percentage. So is it going to come down to outside shooting like you said, Mike? It very well could. If Penn State is hitting, this could be an ugly one for those Aggies. But if not, this could be one of those it end up in the ugly, in the mud type of games. But I'm here for that too. They can't all be pretty, guys. They cannot all be pretty. Watch out for Wade Taylor for the Aggies, Jalen Pickett obviously for those Nittany Lions. Couple of guards to watch in this matchup.
Yeah, this one is tricky, right? Like we said a couple times now, two of the absolute hottest teams in the entire nation facing off. Both of them really had to fight and claw to make their way here, and they will both, whoever advances from this game, will have a very signature win under their belt to go face off against the number 2 ranked Texas team on this side of the bracket. So definitely going to be a hard one to pick. Definitely one that we will keep a close eye on. Before we move to our last region, got some kind words from Teddy O in the chat. Teddy O, we appreciate you. We do not have that donation button, but we've been here grinding all off season, all year. We're going to continue pushing out content this week. You need not open up that wallet. If you want to pay it forward, hit that subscribe button and hit up some of the hoop heads in your life, people that are jonesing for that bracket content, for that March Madness information. I got stuck up in the DFS streets for a second. That March Madness content, drop them a little line. Let them know that you stumbled upon us. Let them know that we're the spot to help them get those brackets filled out. And we cannot fill out those brackets without heading out west, the official
Wild
region
West.
of death. Top 4 seeds, the jobbed over Kansas Jayhawks, UCLA Bruins, Gonzaga Bulldogs, and UConn, one of the most dangerous teams sitting there at the 4 seed to round it out. Mike, let's start with you. I mean, this is a murderer's row up top, and it doesn't get much easier outside of those top 4 teams. So let's start with these top 4 teams first. What are your initial thoughts?
Yeah, this is literally madness right here. For Kansas, we talked about it earlier, man. Rewind the show. Yeah, I don't know why they're in the West. We're going to be out in Vegas, though, in the regional. So hope to see them out there, see UCLA out there. Man, UCLA was my pick like a week or two ago before the Jalen Clark injury. Bono with the shoulder issue, right? Hopefully good to go here. I mean, they still got Hawkes and Tiger Campbell, though. So, yeah, that dangerous team. Gonzaga, right? No one's talking about them this year. Like, no one – it feels like no one cares. It's defensively, they got some issues, right? But I think there's a guy there, Drew Timme. He's still pretty good.
Timber.
Yeah, and I mean, look, they got some dogs on that side. And then UConn at one point was the number 1 team in the country, and I thought like these guys can play any type of style. And kind of resurging here as a 4 seed. Like, man, yeah, this is gonna be a lot of fun. Jay, is there anyone? I mean, can you even pick a favorite? Like, this is kind of crazy. Like,
no,
top 4.
No, but I hope all 4 of these teams end up in that regional when we're out there, because that will be fantastic to see in person. UConn has been like, there was a bunch of these ESPN heads like picking UConn in the Final Four, and I think somebody had picked them to win the whole thing already. Like there's some serious hype behind this UConn team right now, and I can't necessarily blame somebody for falling in love with the way that this team plays. But the grind of this side of this quadrant of the bracket, man, whoever comes out of this and makes the Final Four will be beaten up. They will be battered. And that's going to be a storyline for me heading into the Final Four, is who comes out of this West, the whole iron sharpens iron thing, right? They're gonna have these tough matchups. But yeah, I am definitely excited that we will be out in Vegas to cover this West Regional in a couple of weeks.
Look at it this way, right? Like Kansas and KenPom is the 9th rated team on KenPom. UCLA is 2nd. Gonzaga is 8th, and UConn is 4th. Like, you have 4 of the top 8 teams in KenPom in this region, like
the region of death, like Eric said.
Absolutely wild. And I've seen a lot of love nationally for UConn as well. And kind of like we were talking about a few regions ago with Creighton and with NC State, UConn's a team that if they get hot, they can absolutely make a deep run. Maybe if they weren't in this ridiculous region, right? But ultimately, all 4 of these teams up top are absolutely battle tested.
What did Kansas do to deserve this? What did they do to deserve to be kicked out of the Midwest, out to the West, and against 3 of the top 8 teams in KenPom? This is madness, man.
It's brutal.
I mean, it's proof positive that the selection committee just loves good hoops, right? Like they're gonna have these West regional games locked on, like we all are. Speaking of which, one of these West regional games is going to have none other than our guy Anthony G in attendance. Anthony, don't wear it, but if you want to bring, or at least take a picture and bring your Razier Bolton jersey to that game, go ahead and do it. Anthony G was the winner of our giveaway from last week, so he has won himself an autographed Razier Bolton jersey. This week we are giving away a signed Colin Sexton basketball. To get involved in that, all you need to do, subscribe here on YouTube, and then head over to our Twitter page at Get Green Screens on Twitter. Our pinned tweet up top is announcing that giveaway. Go ahead and hit that retweet button, and you are in the mix. We will draw a winner for that this coming Friday and announce the last week's giveaway as we head into March Madness here. So, Anthony G, always appreciate you checking in. So stoked that you get to head to that Gonzaga game on Friday. And we will use that as a pivot point to talk about some of these intriguing matchups. Mike, I'm going to start off with you. 8-9s are typically a pretty interesting tilt overall. This region features Arkansas and Illinois, two teams that have gotten white hot at different parts of the season this year. How are you making sense of this one?
Yeah. Poor Kansas, man.
Brutal.
What are we doing here? Like, okay. Yeah, I mean, we tend to fall in love maybe a little bit more with these two teams, right? Name brand, and I mean, Illinois beat Texas. I watched it with these eyes, very own eyes, at MSG. And Arkansas, like, I think last check they were a preseason top 5 team with a ton of 5 stars, and like the winners of the transfer portal. We saw that played out with Texas, kind of a similar path with Arkansas. It just seems like too many guys, right? Both these teams are stumbling down the stretch, though. Arkansas's lost 4 of their last 5. Illinois lost 3 of their last 4. But don't let it fool you. These teams have some star power, man. The thing with it, though, Jay, man, like, it's weird to see these teams struggle from 3 and from the free throw line. These are some of the worst shoot. Like, it's crazy to me. Arkansas's 304th in three-point percentage and 287th in free throw percentage. Illinois' 331st in three-point percentage, 307th in free throw percentage. Like, that's not great. We like to talk about it. Look, one game, right? It's a single elimination game, so sometimes you can throw these out, but that's not great.
Well, that was the point that I was going to make, is that either one of these teams could stumble into a second round win against Kansas if they're hitting their shots, right? Especially because both of them have that star power at guard. Nick Smith, obviously for Arkansas, 19.5 points per game the last 5 games. Kind of nicked up all year, right? Like, Arkansas hasn't had the full Nick Smith experience because of those injuries, but he's healthy right now, playing good ball. And obviously on the other side, on the Illinois side of the ball, with Terrence Shannon, almost 18 points per game over the last 5, playing good at the right time. Which one of those stars will shine the brightest, I think, is the question to ask, and will probably tell the tale in which one of these teams end up pulling off this victory, and then most likely facing Kansas in that second round. But again, like, even though they are neither one of these teams, it's not like they're a little bit on a cold streak, right? Both of them. Kansas is not excited about playing either one of these teams in the second round at all. And again, this is another part of the Kansas sort of, I don't know who they made mad, like what the deal is with all this, but they don't really, not exciting to play either one of these teams in the second round of a tournament. But again, like you said, the poor shooting from 3 and the free throw line, I think long term over the course of this tournament will do either one of these teams in, even if they do find a way, to somehow beat Kansas in the second round. But Kansas does. It's not a great feeling to look up and say, "Oh, great! Like we take care of business round 1. We got to face one of these teams."
Yeah, definitely going to be a tough out for Kansas, no matter how this game shakes out. Our next matchup that we want to talk about features the 4 and 13 seeds. Number 4, UConn. I've talked about their ability to get hot and be very scary. Number 13, the Iona Gales, featuring Rick Pitino, who is associated with or tied to seemingly every job opening in college basketball. Mike, you wanna kick us off? Tell us a little about what we need to know for this 4-13 tilt.
Yeah, what a weird situation that is. But I mean, man, like, Pitino knows how to coach basketball at the end of the day, regardless of all that other stuff. And man, battle of the monsters in the middle here. Y'all's guy, Adama Sanogo, who's been pretty good this year, just not for his price tag in DFS. I mean, ho-hum, 17 points, 7 rebounds per game. And then you got Nelly Jr. Joseph on the other side. Been a star in the mid-major ranks here for a couple of seasons now. Almost a double-double on the year, 15 points, just under 10 rebounds. So, man, like we know one thing UConn can do. It's been like this for the past couple of years. Is they just know how to crash the glass. So Iona's going to have to figure this out. Nelly's going to have to secure a ton of boards here. Keep these second chance, opportunities out. Because one thing is UConn's a top 100 team in 3-point percentage, and you're just going to give this team the number one in offensive rebounding. That's a deadly combination. I don't care who you play against. If you're number one in offensive rebounding percentage and you shoot in the top, like those kick out threes, so clutch, right? But Iona kind of matches up pretty well, which is why this is an intriguing matchup. They're in the top 15 in opponent 3-point percentage. So, yeah, Iona knows how to close out. They know how to do a good job doing that. It'll be interesting to see how Pitino deals with Andre Jackson, who, I mean, for the most part, teams just let him kind of stand on the outside, and they're not going to guard him. They'll dare him to shoot, right? And there's times when Hurley's got to take him out. So and that Rick Pitino, he knows that. So we'll see how that how that all boils down, Jay. This would be a fun one, man. This Iona being in this region is crazy to me too. So.
Eric, you mentioned Pitino being linked to all these college basketball jobs. I think he was also linked to the Buffalo Bills defensive coordinator gig that's open, as well as the softball coach at Mary Hardin Baylor, I believe. They were looking for a coach there too. So is this going to affect Iona's focus? That's something that I think about a lot with this matchup. They hear it. They see it. They know that their coach's name is out there, and
he's leaving,
and he's not going to be there. Yeah. Do they play for him? I think that's something that we definitely have to consider here. Like I said earlier, UConn has seemed to be like a trendy pick already to come out of this region and maybe even win the whole thing. Apparently, to some of these talking heads, I'm not that high on UConn. But this is definitely a fun team to watch. For me, it's going to come down to the guard. Yes, Sanogo gets a lot of the hype, and that's well-deserved, and he has played really well. Like you said, we've sworn off of him on DFS in DFS a couple of different times. But for me, it's Jordan Hawkins, it's Tristan Newton, it's Andre Jackson Jr. Are they hitting their shots? Are they taking care of the ball? And I think that is going to tell the tale on whether or not UConn does indeed make a deep run in this tournament.
Yeah, if those guys they are definitely a very dangerous team, despite having to make their way through the region of death. Jay, to your question, I don't think the Pitino stuff ends up being a distraction, right? These are guys that likely were not going to be coached by a Hall of Fame level coach, despite his issues off the court. And I mean, this is the transfer portal era, right? I think a lot of these guys are probably going to go with him wherever he ends up, right? So all the more reason to play hard for him. Still might not be enough to overcome a team quite like UConn, but I do think that we see a valiant effort out of the Gales. Keep this one close, if not outright push for a win altogether. Our last matchup here, we want to highlight 7 and 10. Number 7, the Northwestern Wildcats. Number 10, the Boise State Broncos. Northwestern, for a period there, was just running roughshod over the Big Ten. Boise State, one of the key pieces, the pride of the Mountain West Conference. Mike, let's start with you. In this 7-10 matchup, what are some of the key themes that you're identifying?
Man, you want to watch a heavyweight slugfest? This is your game. They can't all be pretty. This one is not going to be pretty. First team to 60.
What's your over under? What's the number?
Let's I don't know. Let's look at the. I'll get it pulled up right now. Let's see. I think they have their lines up. 64 to 63. So
all right, 127.
First one to 64, I guess. So yeah, good times in this game. It's going to come down to Shaver, right, for Boise State and his matchup with Boo Buie, who Jay likes to reference as one of the all-time names. This
all-world name team right there.
Yeah, all-world name team. Right there with Nelly Jr. Joseph. I slightly favor because Bowie isn't really the only guy. I know they have Rice at Boise State, and he can catch fire too. But I just like Adish from Northwestern too. So some good backcourts in this game, even though this is going to be a defensive slugfest. Jay, any takes on this, man?
Marcus Shaver is going to need to play well for Boise State, like you said. The Boo Buie Marcus Shaver, the guard matchup in this game, I think, will tell the tale here. Northwestern is 15th in shot block percentage and 22nd in steals. Boise State is top 50 in opponent effective field goal percentage, opponent 3-point percentage, and opponent offensive rebound percentage. This is a slugfest. This is a mudslinger rock fight, like Eric was saying earlier. This is just it's going to come down to guard play, like I like to talk about. I'll probably side with my guy Boo Buie on this one, but again, there's going to be a lot of exciting basketball to watch, y'all. Okay, this probably is not it for you. Maybe find another game to partake in. But of course, I'll be flipping through it and I'll watch just to catch my guy Boo Buie. You know, I mean, we're gonna do it. Hey, and also real quick, wanted to mention up. Eric talked about the pin tweet. About to go there over there right now after the show. We'll get the new pin tweet up. The instructions will be over there, like Eric said earlier. Make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel and you will retweet that new pin tweet, not the one with our guy Rasir Bolton on it.
Yeah, not Anthony G's jersey.
Not Anthony G already has. That's probably already. I believe. Let me check the producers. Yes, that's already in the mail. We're already got it out to our guy Anthony G. We'll get the new pin tweet up. Make sure you go over there, retweet that one, and make sure you're subscribed to us here on YouTube, Eric. That's all they got to do.
It's as simple as that. And actually, that new pin tweet is already up. So if you're getting over to our Twitter page, it's at Get Green Screens on Twitter. You can see a nice picture of that silver ink on the ball and hit that retweet button, subscribe here on YouTube. You are in the mix. That will do it for our first look at the brackets on a Selection Sunday. This day is better than Christmas. And before we get out of here, we've got a very, very important question. Teddy O checking back in. Wants to know what the game day setup is like for you guys. Mike, how's
Oh, did we lose Eric there?
Oh,
can't hear you, Eric.
Lost the sound, but I do know that I have been over to Mike's house during tournament time. I have been over to Mike's house in general and seen how those televisions are set up when it ain't March Madness going on. So I know our guy Mike is going to be styling, profiling, and straight wilding with his setup for sure. I know I'll be at work for the first weekend or for the first round games, the Thursday, Friday games. So, we got to be sneaky about it, find ways to get it all set up and make it happen while still getting it done, but I know we all have our different ways of taking in this tournament, and I'm excited the bracket's here. I know we're going to spend a little bit more time breaking down specific matchups, sort of going down our Green Screens bracket coming up here soon, Eric, and it's definitely going to be a good one.
We got you, Eric.
My audio is back now.
There we are.
There he is.
Got you. Where is he? Wait, there he is.
Yep, there he is. Hey, I just saw a weird tweet from Jeff Goodman. It says the NCAA increased it from 350 to 400 miles, in which it will pay for a school to charter flight to the site. Charleston is 380 miles from Orlando, so the NCAA will only cover the cost of a bus. Told Charleston is going to pay for a charter on its own, way down for team and families and bus back. It's like, the comments, the NCAA is trash. Like, this is terrible. This is for such a great tournament. Like, come on.
Yeah, man. I'm not getting worked up about the NCAA tonight, man. This is such a good day. The most wonderful time of the year. We just had a great show talking about this stuff. I'm not letting the NCAA bring me down, man. I'm not doing it.
Yeah, we can't do it. I mean, those comments are going to be legendary, but I mean, just poor job on the NCAA, but that will not burst our bubble tonight because it is, or I guess it was, depending on your time zone, Selection Sunday. We've now crept into manic Monday following Selection Sunday. But this is our first look show, our bracket reveal show. And like I said at the top, appreciate everyone that jumped in with us and participated in the chat, dropping those comments in there. We definitely love seeing you guys chopping it up there in the chat. And like I said a few times, we're going to be pushing out content all week long. We are going to fill out a bracket. We're pushing you a little bit of betting action, going to be pushing you some DFS action. So make sure you stay locked here with Green Screens Media to get all of the March Madness information that you need. And like Jay and I talked about a moment ago, that new pinned tweet is up. So get over to our Twitter page. It's @GetGreenScreens. Hit retweet on that pinned tweet. Make sure you're subscribed to this YouTube channel. That will get you in the drawing for that signed Colin Sexton ball. And also, subscribing to this channel is a real good way to get this bread.
Thanks for stopping by the office. Get your fantasy prescription by subscribing to the channel and checking out drrodo.com. And until the next visit, be well and take care.